Hello, everyone. Allison here from the Mind Your Marketing podcast. And today I am going to be interviewing a colleague of mine, Aoliana, who is an entrepreneur, and she has pre-submitted some questions. So what the framework I'm going to be working with is I'm going to be answering these questions for her about her business. If you're here, you see the title of this call today, Overcoming Imposter Syndrome. So you kind of get the vibe of the questions. If you want to know how I'm going to help Aoliana through some of these things and just learn more about her business in general, then just keep watching. Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thanks for having me, Allison.
Yeah, so you're the second person I've done this format with. I kind of got behind and I have your questions in front of me. So I'm going to just ask you the question, give you a chance to expand on it, and then we'll go from there.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. So the first question you submitted was how to be visible when you suffer from imposter syndrome. Relatable question for myself and also a lot of other people. So tell me more about like how you're struggling with showing up and like how that relates to imposter syndrome.
So, for me specifically, it's a lot of not thinking that I have enough experience and expertise to help anyone. My background is completely opposite from what my business is. I was a paralegal for over 20 plus years, and now I work in construction. But my business is as a podcast strategist, helping um, female podcasters, launch and manage their podcasts with mindset and heart-centered, strategies and things like that. So I feel because I don't have the background in podcasting, the amount of time that I had it for my paralegal stuff, that I don't have anything to say. Like I don't have anything to add to the conversation. So that's basically where my troll jumps in.
Yeah, yeah. And so two things come up for me on this question. One is like when you're jumping into something that you've never done before. So like I've had people get on sales calls with me before who were like, I want you to teach me how to do Facebook ads so I can be a Facebook ads manager. And I'm like, I feel like that's a sticky situation to jump into something like if you say you're experienced and you're not, or if you're selling something where you're not experienced. So
Mhm.
like the first question is what experience do you have that kind of relates to this?
Okay, so I did some podcast management, the back end of a few podcasts. I've done a lot of strategy calls, audits for people with their podcasts, looking into like what works, what doesn't work. Um, I've been listening to podcasts since probably 2017. I love all kinds of podcasts, and I know like what I like and what I don't like. As far as content and how people put it together and things like that, so I bring those things, um, as well as also realizing that a lot of things that people struggle with aren't necessarily with the actual podcast, but more the mindset, like feeling like I'm feeling, you know like you don't have anything to say, you don't have anything to share, when in reality, it's just you have to share it, and the right people are going to hear you and are going to need that message. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. So like everything you just said, keep a list. And then like in your mindset routine, if you don't have one, I would start like having a daily space for yourself, which it sounds like you do because you're like already into the mindset. You need to keep a list of all the wins that relate to this work because you do have like you're not brand new. You have experience in it, you've done it, you have opinions. I don't have opinions. I mean, I do have some opinions on people's podcasts, but I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. So
Mm.
like I will tell you that's something that's unique about you already is like you've got opinions. You know what's good, you know what's bad, you know what hooks people. So keeping a list of every success, even if it's small. So like you do a market research call, maybe the person doesn't buy from you, but they're like, oh my gosh, I have so much more clarity now.
Mhm.
Like you get to own that. And then like just pumping yourself up with more of that evidence. The other suggestion I had, which it sounds like it's something you've already done a little bit, which is like you can really use market research calls and discovery calls for confidence.
Yeah.
Paying attention to, like, instead of just focusing on like I need to get the sale, which is not, I'm not saying that's the mentality that you have, but what I pay attention to on sales calls is like, what am I getting really excited about? Or like when I'm on a sales call, I have to have a moment where I'm like, oh, like I know what the problem is here and I know how to fix it. And if I don't have that moment, I can't really sell it. But even if I don't get the sale, those moments build up to confidence where like that's how I started coaching so many bloggers was like I was just a blogger myself and I was coaching entrepreneurs on like online marketing and then I kind of landed into blog coaching originally, like in 2019 or so, because I was like, so many people are blogging badly for making money. And that wasn't something I knew that I was good at, but I just got passionate about it and had a lot of opinions about it. So like my biggest advice is like keeping a list of all the wins, even if they're tiny, and really intentionally leaning into the moments where you feel like a rock star, just like really leaning into that somatically, like feeling in your body like how much of a rock star you are.
That's funny because that's actually how I pivoted into podcast strategy from management, because it just felt natural to help people with the strategy versus doing the back end stuff.
Yeah.
So,
You can trust yourself, like and that's maybe the last piece of, like, with imposter syndrome is, like, you can trust that the desires of your heart of what you're supposed to be doing, and you do already have experience, I can hear, and now you just have to add more.
yeah, yeah. I like that. I can work with that. I can do that.
Pump yourself up, and just, like, pay attention to those moments where you're, like, excited and feel awesome, like, keep those in your back pocket for when you're not feeling great. The second question was how to sell services authentically so I don't feel like a salesperson. So tell me more about what that looks like.
So, since I pivoted into this pretty recently, like probably in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, Um, I haven't really sold anything. Like I've been part of bundles, so I've put in my yeah, like I have a course and things like that. So I've put those in bundles, which it hasn't really been, sales. And I'm in Faith's mastermind. So my goal for this quarter was lead generation because I really didn't have an audience. So now that I have one, we're focusing more on sales, which has been something that for me has always been difficult because I don't like the word sales.
Mhm.
I don't like it, just it doesn't feel right to me. So I had somebody had me create, I'm like, well, what do you like? And I'm like, well, I can spread something. So I like fairies. So it was like I'm spreading pixie dust when I'm sharing my offers. So it's changing that mindset to where I'm not really selling. I'm just sharing what I have. And if someone needs it or wants it, then they'll come to me with, asking for it. But if I don't share it, they're not going to know that I have it available.
Yeah.
So it's just that mindset shift of, just changing my mind towards not sales, but more sharing is
Yeah.
where I'm kind of stuck.
That I think is a great mindset shift. A lot of times when people don't like to sell, I see this a lot with coaches and service providers because as service providers, you probably get a lot of gross DMs every day from someone who's like, I'll help you book 5,000 sales calls a day, guaranteed, or your money back. Plus, and I'm like, it's never what they say. Like, who wants that many sales calls, first of all? I do
Right.
not want 50 sales calls a day. That'd be a
That's a lot.
heck no for me.
Yeah,
But that's one reason why people hesitate to sell is because they don't like how they've been sold to.
absolutely.
So, what is the sales process like when you either bought something or didn't buy something, but felt really like respected, honored, supported? What was the sales process that you as a prospect enjoyed?
So probably sales where I don't feel like I'm being sold to,
Hmm.
like really, um, where I feel like it was my decision. I wasn't pressured into it. Where I feel like my intuition, I jumped into it knowing exact full well what I was getting into, and there was no second guessing. Um, Also, situations where I was able to get my questions answered, or I had access to the person to say, hey, um, you know, I have this question a month down the line. Can I still ask those questions? And I guess a lot of my hesitation too was one of the first courses that I purchased when I was doing podcast management. I paid for it. The coach disappeared, and it was like, and it was like my very first time buying anything in as an entrepreneur. So that was really hard. And then to jump into other things, it's been really hard. And so I don't want to repeat that that experience for anybody else. So I want to make sure that it's a positive experience.
Yeah. Well, you know you're not gonna disappear.
Yes.
So, like, you know, without over delivering or crossing your own boundaries, like, you know how you wanna support people.
Mhm.
And then I think what you said about so you like the sales process when there's a genuine connection, like, you like being
Yes.
able to ask questions. You don't like the feeling of being pressured or
Hmm.
sold to. And so but you have to sell in order to let people know that you have something to sell, right? And so one of the things that is helpful for me in creating sales content is how can I make this interesting and valuable even if this person never buys from me?
I like that.
So then if you make a post, like here's what not to do that I see a lot of people doing, like, hey guys, last day of the sale, make sure you check it out. There's nothing interesting or valuable about that if somebody never buys from you. But if you can highlight a case study through storytelling, you can give a tip, you can share your own personal story, you can coach on mindset. But there's all these there's a few ways you can divide these buckets, but three buckets that I learned really early on were education, inspiration, and aspiration. And like if you can choose one of those buckets and then use that for a sales post, education is like tips, mistakes people make, case studies, how I got these results. Aspiration is like case studies. Or like, here's what life could be like. And then inspiration is more like higher level motivational stuff. But thinking about like, and you can do this, you can write the post and have it be bad, and then go back through and say, how can I make this interesting for people who will never buy from me? And then that would be storytelling, teaching, or something. Um, and if you do that in every post, you never have to worry about being salesy because you'll always have something interesting.
Yeah, it'll be authentic, it'll be genuine instead of just trying to post for the sake of, can I get a sale or will I get a sale out of it?
Yeah,
I
how
like
can
I
I
like
make
that
it
thought.
interesting for someone who'll never buy from me? Um, there's something else I was gonna say. Oh, and then just pay attention to when you buy. When you buy something, like, and pay attention to the things you sell. How do I buy when it's high ticket? How do I buy when it's a course? What made me feel amazing when I bought something? Like after I bought this $2,000 thing, the person did this and I felt so safe and supported. And those are the kinds of things you can include in your business too. We're both coughing. It's that time of year. Yeah. While you're coughing your lungs up, I'm going to ask your last question. The last question is, how do I set up my messaging and branding so that it works together to speak to my ideal clients? So we'll take a deep breath, drink some water, and expand on that when you're ready.
Hopefully I can talk. If not, I'll mute myself again.
Yeah, I can stumble through it. I've been having this all day. I'm just lucky that I'm not doing it right now, coughing. And I've been eating super healthy too. That's what I get for eating healthy is I get sick.
Mine is just when the weather changes here in Florida, it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so real quick. My messaging and branding, I want I just recently figured out who my ideal client was. So I know that I wasn't talking to the right people.
Mhm.
Um, so now I'm trying to gear more towards the female podcasters, the ones launching more so than the management ones.
Mhm.
And so that's where I want to see like how my branding is very simple. Like I like sunflowers, so that's what I've kind of done my branding as. And so my messaging, I've been working a lot on being more specific with my messaging, more specific with what I'm helping people with, what problem am I solving? Because that was something at the beginning that I wasn't doing. I was talking about my services, but not in a way where I was specifically talking about how the transformation I was helping people create. And so the message wasn't hitting anyone because I was like basically talking to everyone and not talking to anyone. So that's where my hang up was with the messaging and the branding.
Yeah. So what are the main problems you're solving?
So right now, the main problems I'm solving is the burnout
Mhm.
that a lot of podcasters face as far as the management aspect of it. As far as the launch, actually, both for the launch and the management, is a lack of goals, lack of
Mhm.
goal setting, and a lack of understanding what success is for them in specifically. So I get a lot of clients that I get on calls with where they're like, "Well, my podcast isn't growing like this person's, and I want to know why. I want you to help me get, to 1 million downloads." But the person they're looking at has a team of like 20 people in marketing and promotions, and the person I'm talking to is doing everything by themselves. And it's just getting them to that realization that you could get there, but you're not in that place right now. There's no way you can do what someone with a team of 20 is doing all by yourself. So getting people to realize that they need to know what success means for them and for their podcast in order to know if it's successful or not, or if
Yeah.
it's going in the right direction. So that's what I'm focusing on right now with my messaging and such.
Yeah, and I also kind of feel like you're a bridge, right? So, like, because people think like, people don't realize that they're the bottleneck to growth. I mean, podcasting is hard. Like, you have to put it's like the thing that you focus on all the time if you're gonna grow it.
Hmm.
And people who are entrepreneurs, like, they're launching the podcast because they wanna grow their business, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to manage a podcast business.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think coming up with, like I think those are a great couple of pillars. If as far as, like, your branding is fine. So as far as visual branding, I'm, like, super minimal until you can afford to pay someone to do it for real. And
Hmm.
paying someone to do it for real is, like, you're looking at least $2,000 for, like, decent branding. Until then, do what you're doing now. Choose a couple of fonts that you like, choose a couple of colors that you like, and that way, when you eventually get a professional logo and color palette, you're not, like, changing it on everything. You're just, like, tweaking.
Hmm.
And then for the messaging, if you can go back to your calls that you've done, like, it's easy for messaging if you can kind of tie yourself to a few pillars. So, like, one of the pillars that you mentioned is goal setting. Another one is something around energy management. Like, you can say avoid burnout, but we want to say, like, the positive side of that. So, like,
Right.
here's how we help. It's like goal setting. Like, if you want to get to 1 million downloads, you have to stop wishing and praying for it and actually make a plan.
Right.
And you can't be the only one. If you want to get to 1 million downloads, it cannot be a one man show. Like, how many podcasters do you know who have 1 million downloads and are a one man show? Probably not very many. Maybe
Right.
more YouTubers than podcasters. Um, so go back to your market research calls and see, like, what are the things that people say over and over again that are problems, and what are the things that I get the most excited about helping with, and try to come up with like 3 to 5 of those. And that's, like, the most important thing in your branding is, like, so mine are, like, the things I kind of circle back to all the time are, like, leveraged offers, online marketing and leveraged marketing, and then, like, the nervous system stuff. And then I kind of rotate. There's a couple of things I talk about, but those are the main things are leveraged offers, leveraged marketing, and then self-care in some form. And for the last 2 years, it's been nervous system, but before that, it was mindset and whatever new thing that I learn and become obsessed with. Um, but that's, I think, the most important part of your branding right now. And it sounds like you have half of that, like some of that. But does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, thank you. To know that I'm actually in the right direction, and I just need to tweak it a little bit and be a little bit more focused in getting, what problems I'm solving, and then couple that with what I'm excited about, understanding that that's really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Those were all your questions. I'm curious, like, what is your plan to get clients? Like, I know you've been focusing on audience growth. So what's your plan for actually starting to get more clients?
So actually for this month, well, I did it for November and December, and I've gotten um, a couple of them set up, was offering free strategy calls. So
Mhm.
like a 45-minute free call. And I've done about 5 of them already, and I've got a bunch of them in the next few weeks. Um, and I've actually had a couple of people that were like, okay, so I'm starting a podcast in 2024. What are the offers that you have? And so I've actually been pretty comfortable pitching, like my one on ones or my strategy calls or even the Voxer support that I offer. Um, and I've had a couple of people that have been interested in those and have, written down the prices and to get back to me. So I have to get better at the follow up. So that's basically my plan, is just to use those strategy calls and the clarity calls once I'm done with doing the free ones, and offering those services on a one-on-one, um the strategy leading to actually working with me. So my launch strategy is a 3-month thing or a 2-month thing, and then my management strategy is a month to month, but with the calls every 3 months. So my plan is to have a strategy call with them every quarter to look at what's working, what's not working, what do we need to tweak, and so start every quarter with that call and end every quarter with that call, so that they have a good plan going into the following quarter of what they need to do.
Yeah, that all sounds great. Yeah, and so whenever, like, when you get clients or when you get people asking about your services, like, really leaning into, like, marking that and remembering, because, like, you'll someday you'll wake up and you'll be like, I need a client. How did I get clients? I forgot how I get clients. Like, that happens to me where I, like, haven't gotten a client in a while because I've just been busy, and then I'm like, now I need a client. How did I do that before? Like, was it email or was it like how did I? So really paying attention to those levers you can pull, and the watering holes those people are coming from.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's easier. Like, doing services for people is great because, like, when you're a coach and you're trying to prospect, you're kind of like, I would like to charge you a lot of money and give you a transformation that is totally dependent on your effort.
Yeah.
Whereas with services, it's like, I would like you to pay me money and I will deliver this thing to you. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's a lot less like coaches who are like in the DMs. It's kind of like, like, I don't like, it's just the vibe is like not positive in my opinion. Whereas like
Yeah.
services in the DMs is kind of like, do you want this thing? I don't know. It's like, so you have lots of ways to get clients if you get stuck. There's lots of ways you can prospect that are not gross. And I say that as a coach who gets a lot of DMs from people prospecting me. Like, there are some emails I get where I really pay attention. Um, so
I
yeah.
got 2 of those slimy prospecting things today, and I was like, no,
I
just
get I get
no.
2 probably every day. And it really kind of like, I used to DM heavily as a part of my own prospecting, but now I think I probably miss some opportunities from not being on social as much, but I just feel better. That's the season I'm in. It could change.
Yeah. I mean, I put my tips on TikTok and Instagram, and I guest on people's podcasts, and that's how I've been doing it, and the bundles and doing the summits and things like that. And I like those because it's more of a connection, and I
Mhm.
really like that connection, because then when I have a relationship, or not really a relationship, but I feel better. I feel more comfortable sharing what I have because I know that they need it,
Yeah.
versus cold prospecting and then not really knowing what it is that they need. Like, one of the things I dislike the most is when I get a message from somebody telling me I can do XYZ for you, and I don't even do what they're offering. And it's like, well, you obviously didn't do any research. Like, I'm a podcast strategist, but I don't have a podcast yet. Like, I'm planning one for next year, but people are like, here's a way to grow your podcast. And I'm like, I don't have a podcast right now. So,
That's pretty common though, right? Like a lot of Facebook ads managers don't have Facebook ads. A lot of marketers or SEO specialists don't have blogs. Like just because you're a podcast manager doesn't mean, I mean, that's a lot of work. You'd have to, then you need your own podcast manager.
right, right. And I'm like, and I have the content. I just don't have it because I have a blog,
Hmm.
but I just don't, I never thought to have a podcast, which is kind of ironic, but
I think that's like so normal. Website developers never have a website. That's like
yeah.
how it works. So,
Like,
okay. So how can people find you and your podcast services?
so I am at Top Shelf Virtual Services. I am on TikTok. It's Aoliana _pod_strategy. And I'm on Instagram, aoliana.elliott, ELLIOTT.
Very good. And you guys can see all of that on topshelfvirtualservices.com. I'm sure you can visit Aoliana's profile to find all of that. And I'll actually just link this in our description here. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this is helpful.
Thank you. Yes, it was. Thank you so much. I have a lot more clarity about what I need to do. So I
Yay.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I will see you around on the internet. And for everyone watching, if you guys have questions, leave a comment and I'll get back to you. And you guys have a good rest of your day.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.